Confession. I accidentally made a power cut which affected one of the largest towns in the United Kingdom. Before I begin, I'm not a good storyteller. This happened a couple of years ago. I saw sparks coming out of an electrical cord. Like, loads / of sparks. So, being the panicky, confused person I am, I ran to the circuit breaker and pulled the switch which gave the entire house power. As soon as I pulled it, I got out my phone flashlight. I ran back to where the cord was and pulled it out. There weren't any sparks coming out of it anymore, but nevertheless I was pretty scared. So, there wasn't much to do now. I would probably just buy a new cord tomorrow and that would just be the end of this. I looked outside the window, and was about to sit down, when I realized that it was pitch black outside. Not even the street lamps were on. Literally nothing was on. So I went on the Western Power Distribution, they are a company that power my part of the UK, website, and found out that literally my entire town had no power, and the issue would be solved in about 3 hours. I had no clue what to do now. I was so confused. I literally pissed off an entire town. What do you do when you piss off an entire town? When the 3 hours were over, the power still wasn't on, and according to the website we'd still have to wait for another 2 hours. After 2 hours, the power did come back on, and thank God it did. The next day, a bunch of people were talking about it, and I don't know if I should be surprised about this or not, but it actually appeared on a news article. I've not told anyone about this whole thing, but I guess I just did. Dr. I cut off one of the largest town in the UK's power and it got on the news. Edit, spelling error. There possibly was a surge on the grid that caused the sparking and just so happened you cut your power off the same time it tripped the whole city. I don't think you did it. Power isn't so vulnerable that one person can do something like that with one broken cord. There are thousands of people with some electrical problems and still we have electric power almost 99% of the time available. Electrician here, no way you caused that. A power outage of that magnitude couldn't be caused by a single cord in your home. You didn't cause that lol. If it were really so easy to rob a major town of its power, terrorism would be child's play. Haha, that made me laugh. I actually work for that company. It's highly unlikely you caused it, so don't worry. Thanks man, still mad. You fucker, I was making my chili when this happened. As an electrical engineer working for a utility. You didn't cause the outage lol. Why on earth do you think that turning off the power to one house would take down the grid for the whole town? Talk about egocentric. When the electricity is gone, people are reduced to their primitive state and mindset. I think you should be commemorated for reminding your town of what the dark really looks like. There is literally a 0% chance you caused that. Electrical engineer here. I hate to break it to you, but you didn't cause the power outage to your town. Imagine your house's water pipeline. You can turn on and off the water at different areas of the house and it wouldn't affect the ability of turning on / off the water in the other areas. The only water valve that can turn off all the water in the house is the main water valve that is connected to the water pipe coming from outside. That's the same concept for the electrical grid. Just because you open your own house breaker does not mean it will affect other houses. The power outage would have occurred somewhere outside on the power lines or equipment outside, as that would have tripped the town's main breaker. Sparks of your electrical cord should have tripped on the breaker that provides power to that particular receptacle. Even if, by chance, that breaker failed to trip, then your main house breaker would have tripped, which it shouldn't because that's not what it's meant to protect. In no way would the town's breaker trip. No. No, you did not cause the power outage. Drugs are bad. Of course you didn't cause it. The sparking, to begin with, was caused by something wrong in the electrical system. As you pulled out your cord, the system went down. You didn't cause it. Why would one house's power be able to control an entire city's power grid? Here in LA, during a huge rainstorm, one of our large trees uprooted and fell. It fell across power lines, pulled them down, and threw the whole neighborhood into darkness. That was our fault. Sorta, and still it only affected our one neighborhood. Electricity doesn't work like that. It was probably a surge and you threw your main breaker at the same time as the city shut down their feed. You probably got sparks from the surge. 99.9999999999999% probably not your fault. Why is this getting upvotes? Obviously this had nothing to do with you, no need to panic. You didn't cause the outage, this is just very funny timing. But a city's power grids wouldn't be affected by the circuit breakers of one house. Likely the sparks happened due to a power surge, which is what actually took down the electrical grid. Otherwise all the people working to fix the issue would have just shown up at your house to deal with the cord. Lol. We had the same thing happened. We thought we did it. Whole village was out of electricity. More of a coincidence. I was fixing an internet issue at a customer's house, work on some Cat5 wiring, and about a foot away from me was the doorbell transformer, that just randomly started to smoke and a very small fire started. It had absolutely nothing to do with what I was doing, but what are the odds? Crazy stuff happens sometimes, greater than I am not a good storyteller. Holy shit, you weren't kidding. You need to reveal the town. Do you know the link to the news article? Proof? This cord was in your house. In that case, you are not to blame. If it was some cable in the street that you pulled that cord, then you are an idiot because it could seriously harm you. But as I read this story, that was not the case. What you did was a normal and healthy thing. Your action may very well have caused this, like the straw that breaks the camel's back, but the problem was caused elsewhere and not by you. Wasn't your fault though. Definitely a coincidence. Circuit breaker, power lead and flashlight. Also whole town's power is down and you go on the company's website? How exactly? If the grid is down on that scale, then there is no mobile either. There's no way you caused a big enough surge to cut off the town's power. Maybe a pull fuse at worst. It sounds like whatever cut the town power was causing your issue. Coincidence. You should do it again. I'm an apprentice as a sparky at the moment in Ireland, and the guy who is teaching me the trade said when he was an apprentice at one of the largest power stations in the north of England, they were specifically told don't press these buttons on one of the control panels of the generators. One of the other apprentices leaned against it by mistake one day and turned off all the generators. When you power down these generators, you can't just switch them back on. They take hours to power down and power back up. He left most of Nexlow Castle out of power for about 6 to 8 hours. Years ago, there was some kind of labour ruckus with shepherders in some small Scottish town, and as part of their protest, they took over some telco switching house and ended up cutting the entire city of Aberdeen's phone service for 3 days. That was a fun weekend. Torch. If you're from the UK, then you've been Americanized by using the term flashlight. I'm not a specialist nor any level of expert, but I know enough about how electricity distribution works to tell you with 100% confidence that there is no way you caused the outage. It was just coincidental timing on your part. I've had a similar event happen. I had turned on the TV downstairs and then put something in the microwave, went upstairs to charge my phone, and then suddenly the power goes out. Initially had thought I'd caused an overload somewhere and the circuit breaker automatically triggered. But turns out there was a power cut in the area due to something at the actual power distribution place for a particular part of town, which included my area. I can't quite remember because it was years ago, and I knew even less then than I did now, so specific terms I'd read have gone from my memory. To reiterate, you absolutely didn't cause the outage. There is no way that was you. It doesn't work like that, sorry pal. But at least you're off the hook. Sounds like a coincidence to me. I forgive you. Huddersfield, not only did you not cause the outage, your instincts likely prevented further damage to the house. If you're English, then surely it is a torch, not a flashlight? How long has it been since your last confession, my son? Some URL. It wasn't you. You'd blow the fuse on the incomer before anything happens upstream. Even if you bypass that, you'd only blow a fuse at the substation, assuming you didn't melt a wire somewhere in your house first. You obviously had nothing to do with this outage. What town? So it's your fault me pasties weren't bloody cooked through proper. When I was a kid, my neighbor farted in my old ass tube TV, probably from the 80s, shut off and started smoking. Thing was pooched. Then a few months later that same neighbor farted and the power to the entire town went off. This seems like a similar situation. The power went out for 5 hours? In my area there was no power for a whole week. Apparently someone cut an optic cable, thus giving no electricity to like 4 to 5 towns. Edit. I'm a dumbass and please don't attack me. Sorry, English is not my first language. Is the largest town like still smaller than the smallest city? How is it? That was this guy, don't know the obvious. Pretty scary. From now on, no more working around the house for you. Very likely you'll burn it down.